Most people spend years trying to heal trauma when you can really start in seconds. In the last 5 years, I spend an hour daily to process my past, learn from the top experts on trauma, and discovered that healing is about welcoming trauma, not getting rid of it. In this video, I want to share my framework of how you can do that in seconds, hours, and years. This is especially effective for highly sensitive people like myself. If you'd like to understand the full impact of trauma on your life, I've made this free tool that tells you exactly how traumatic your childhood was. You just answer some questions and it gives you a score out of 100. Do check it out. Let's look at what healing trauma really is. The problem majority of people have on their healing journey is that they don't really understand its fundamentals, and that wrecks their progress. What I'm about to share now would have easily saved me a couple of years if someone were to share this with me back when I started. So, a few years ago, I fell off my scooty and I incurred an injury here. I don't know whether you can see it. Because I cleaned up the wound and protected it in the coming week, it healed. Similarly, when you face a highly stressful situation, you incur a psychological wound. And when you give it the right environment, it heals. But if in case it doesn't get that, it forever stays sensitive and becomes trauma. Essentially, trauma is a psychological injury that didn't heal. Let's break this down even further. A stressful situation is anything that causes overwhelming emotions. And overwhelming emotions are super subjective. So, for a 3-year-old child, being left alone is highly stressful. Although, this is key here, if you experience overwhelming emotions but you have an adult to console you, you are able to recover from that. Because as a child, your brain is underdeveloped and you're dependent on your caregivers to process your emotions, especially the strong ones. For instance, if as a child you witness your parents beating up your sibling, you'll feel intense fear, and that'll be traumatic because you don't know how to handle it and you don't have anyone to console you. So essentially, trauma is caused by overwhelming emotions and lack of emotional support in that very instant. And most people don't know this, but emotions are felt in the body, which is exactly why the most common symptom of trauma is a disconnect from your body. That is the entire premise of this book, The Body Keeps the Score. So, what does healing look like here? If you can find a safe environment to bring up these suppressed emotions and get comfortable feeling them in your body, that is when healing starts to happen. This happens ideally in therapy, but you don't have to be on a therapist's mercy. You can take charge of your own past and create a healing environment on your own as well, just like I did. Which brings me to the easiest way to do that. If trauma at its core is a disconnect from your emotions and your body, how do you start connecting with them? The fastest way I know to do that is this app called How We Feel. It's so effective. I suggest this to literally every single one of my clients. It allows you to label what you're feeling using precise words. There's even a space to be curious about why you're feeling a certain emotion and figure out exactly where you feel it in your body. What I love about this app is it's also designed in a way that validates all your emotions. It doesn't label emotions as negative or positive. Rather, it calls them unpleasant and pleasant. For many of my clients, this is the first time they start noticing emotions and emotional patterns in their body and they start reconnecting with it. And even though it's a very tiny step, it like one check-in takes around 30 seconds. Over time, these mini check-ins with emotions and your body not only increase your ability to manage your emotions, but also your bodily awareness grows to a whole different level. I try to use this app thrice a day, but I also log in when I just want to figure out what the fuck I'm feeling. The second way to heal is on a piece of paper. If the app is like a quick greet to emotions and your body, what I'm about to suggest now is like a deep dialogue with them. One of the most effective ways to create the situation for healing, that is, strong emotions combined with safety, is through journaling. When you give words to your emotions, especially through writing, it activates the prefrontal cortex and deactivates the amygdala in your brain. Basically, it calms you down and gives you a safer objective space to understand your emotions and trauma. And on my healing journey, some major transformations started happening once I started writing my deepest emotions. So let me share an example. A while back ago, I was with a couple of my friends and we just bumped into some mutual friends. We were roasting each other and I was having a blast until I became the target and I was roasted a good bit. And even though it was all light-hearted and fun, I felt super humiliated. So I came back home and I vomited everything that was going on in my head and body. I just wrote and wrote in my anger until my hand stopped. And when my hand stopped, I felt so light, it was almost like I was floating. So here are the key elements to processing trauma through journaling. Number one is notice what triggers you in your days. You can use the app for that. B, write whatever you're feeling and thinking without any filters. Do not judge anything that comes up, no matter how horrible or illegal it is. It's very important in this process to be kind and compassionate to yourself and your darkest parts. And then finally, reflect upon how it possibly stems from your childhood. For me, I realized that the humiliation bit came from getting laughed at by my family when I was a child. I genuinely wouldn't have realized this if I didn't do this exercise. We often don't realize the lifelong impact of such seemingly insignificant things from our childhood, which is exactly why I've created the tool which helps you become aware of such causes of trauma. And as you take the test, a lot of things start to make sense. I took it myself and this is what I got, which was unexpected. So if you'd like to discover that, click the link below and take the test. Which brings me to by far the most powerful way to heal. Let's do a fun exercise. I want you to try this right now with me if you want to understand the most effective and powerful technique for healing. So, I want you to stretch your tricep like this, and as you stretch it, I want you to go a little hard so that it becomes slightly uncomfortable. Now I invite you to close your eyes and notice this pain in your tricep. Just stay with it. Now let's make your awareness more detailed. How does the stretch really feel like? Where do you feel the pain or discomfort the most? How intense is it on a scale of 1 to 10? Breathe into this pain without trying to change it in any way for a couple of seconds here. Feel free to open your eyes and let go of your elbow. Now, what we did here was a practice called somatic experiencing. I guided your attention in your body, specifically your tricep, and we stayed with an uncomfortable sensation. That is exactly what I do with emotions and trauma as well. Let me explain. So, in the last 5 years, I've had at least an hour in my day where I bring up emotions from the past and I just sit with those uncomfortable sensations in my body without trying to change them in any way. At least that's what the goal is. If you're wondering how I bring up those emotions, I do that by noticing when I get triggered in my days, or even actively triggering myself sometimes by doing scary things like approaching a stranger or a group of people. The goal here is not to change the emotions that come up, but rather getting comfortable feeling them in the body. As you get consistent with the app and journaling, your interoception muscles will strengthen, which is your ability to feel emotions in your body. And you'll be able to spot emotions more easily in, again, the body. The emotions could look like tightness in the neck, heaviness in your chest, or even maybe your heart beating faster, or perhaps knots in your gut. For me, it's mostly in the torso area. And as you stay with these uncomfortable sensations over time, your body starts to learn that it's safe to feel and be with these sensations. The effects of trauma are compounded a lot if you're a highly sensitive person like myself. I talk about the 6 traits of HSP in this video. So click here to see if these show up in you.